So here's the real question. How do dentists like you, who aren't willing to let insurance dictate how you will run your practice, who want to create incredibly profitable practices without sacrificing your time or sanity, how do you create the strategies to ensure your practice not only survives but thrives in the 21st century? That's the blaring question, and Dr. Steve Schalintz is here to provide the answers. Welcome to Dental Practice Freedom Radio.
Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Dr. Steve Schalintz, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Dental Practice Freedom Radio. I'm going to have to apologize in advance about the audio quality. I have my mic, but I can't find the little thing that goes on top of the mic, so it might be raw and real and in your face. Secondly, I don't feel that bad. I don't feel sick yet, but I'm kind of coming down with something, I believe. I'm traveling now pretty much every week flying, and occasionally I do I've gotten a lot better. Here's newsflash: eat better, sleep better, exercise, and you don't get as sick as much. Isn't that amazing? But occasionally I'll get congestion and things like that, so I'm kind of running into that, so I might not sound like my normal self, but that doesn't matter, right? I've recorded these podcast episodes out of cars. When I do travel a lot, I don't really have a recording studio. So, that's one thing people have asked me before in the past, like, how do you do your podcast? How do you record it? What mic are you using? I said, well, I have a setup, but honestly, I travel so much that that doesn't matter, guys. It's the message, right? It's message in the market, and are they listening to you? And that's actually what this episode is going to be about. I've touched on this, but it was probably about 90 episodes ago. It's really long ago. And I wanted to go back to it because I'm seeing this a lot in both the coaching space where I'm at and also the dental space. And this is a dental problem. So I get asked this question all the time. I'm moving to a more fee-for-service, wellness-based direction. I want to get out of insurance, but what I'm doing, I don't even know if it's working, and the results aren't there. What should I be doing? Here's the thing. I learned this from somebody I was going through a coaching program with, and he said one of his mentors had told him this. And I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember the exact quote, but he said, you have to have 100% belief that what you're doing is correct and 100% confidence. But you also have to be completely open and willing to accept that it may not be. And I'm a big proponent of moving to a higher relationship to your practice if you're a solo provider. If you guys know this, and even if you're in a small group, if you guys have listened to this podcast, you know that that's kind of where I stand. I really do believe that you have a choice as a dentist. You can move to a more relationship-based practice that's built on common goals, wellness, health, high-end aesthetics, really creating a unique experience with your patients. And that's one model. Then there's kind of a middle model, which is like corporate. And sadly, that's where most dentists are trying to compete right now. They're trying to compete against corporate and thinking that somehow it's going to work. And newsflash, it's not. If you're trying to compete with corporate, you're playing the wrong game. You'll never be successful. You have to get out of corporate's realm, which to me is right now a wellness-based practice. It's very hard to replicate that in a corporate environment. If you look at just corporate dentistry in general, it relies heavily on team turnover, patient turnover, really, and then doctor turnover. They know that the shelf life of a dentist in that corporate environment is only going to be a year or 2 years, maybe 3, right? And they pay them really good money. They wear them out. And if you've been in that environment like I have, after about a year, you're spent. I mean, you're just physically and emotionally taxed. And then there's a lower tier, which is more government-based, right? Medicaid patients, those 3 tiers, really ultimately, you're going to fall in one of those tiers. And where I see dentists struggle primarily is they try to juggle both, like 2 of the tiers. You never really see somebody that I don't see too many dentists that are doing a lot of Medicaid, but then also trying to do a high-end fee-for-service practice. Like that doesn't really ever work. And I'm not saying that seeing Medicaid makes you a bad dentist. In fact, it's the complete opposite. I give you nothing but the utmost respect. I treated patients in a Medicaid style practice for a year. But like I said, it wasn't for me. That wasn't the model I wanted to be in. And, I find that dentists usually, maybe they're in the Medicaid, but they're also trying to get into that PPO world. So like they're in the bottom two tiers. Just think of it, visually, like you have three tiers. You have the bottom tier, middle tier, top tier. So dentists try to either be, they try to straddle lines because they think somehow there's safety in that. I can get a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one. So I'll be in the bottom tier and the middle tier, and I kind of fluctuate. And then you have business systems that don't work because each one of those tiers has its own unique business system. And dentists don't understand that. Like they don't understand that each one of those tiers to be successful has a business component that goes with the tier. And the better you get with the business component that goes with the tier, the more successful you'll be. And so dentists will straddle between the bottom and the middle tier, right? They have some Medicaid, and then they try to do some PPO, and then they are semi-successful, but not really. And if you really dig into the numbers, they're not successful at all. Or you see dentists that try to go, a lot of dentists that I talk to, they do the second thing, which is they have PPO, but they're also trying to go fee for service. So they're living in both worlds. Now, as you transition, that's essential. Like you have to do that. But you have to always keep your eye on like the target. Where do you want to be? Which tier do you want to fall into? And I don't care which tier you're in, but you have to make a commitment to orient your practice towards that specific tier. And most of my clients, the ones that I get the best results for, they want to get to that third tier. And so they start to put business systems in place that allow them to do more of that third tier type dentistry. And so I see this a lot in the dental space. They can't make a commitment and move towards something. So they straddle these lines and they end up getting confused and lost. And so they'll listen to every coach around talking about this thing and that thing, but none of the systems ever make sense because it's not geared towards a specific end result. So I see that a lot. Okay, so if you're in that model, just understand if you're trying to straddle all of these different levels, it's going to be very hard on your business. It really will. You could by sheer force still be successful, profitable, but you're working too hard to do it. I can guarantee you that. And that is not just dentistry. That's any business model. I'm trying to remember the book that I was reading. I don't know if it was the EMyth. I think it was the EMyth. It might not have been an EMyth though, but they were talking about airlines and they talked about Southwest and why Southwest is successful as an airline. It's because it knows what it's trying to do and it's very clear and intentional and it's built its business around that, right? And when they deviate from that, it becomes a problem. Or look at Walmart and Amazon. Walmart is still very successful and Amazon is obviously Amazon. But when Walmart tries to compete in Amazon's space, it usually blows up. If they try to put everything online, they lose the cost factor that makes them so successful. I still can get stuff cheaper on Walmart than Amazon. It's the convenience of Amazon that I will value more than the savings for Walmart. But I'm not every customer. And I can guarantee you some customers will drive to Walmart to get the lowest price. I'd rather pay a little bit more and have it shipped to me. That's just me, right? But if Walmart tries to compete in Amazon's space, it doesn't work very well. Now, I'm curious to see the time that Amazon will try to overstep its bounds. If it doesn't stay true to its roots and it starts to straddle those lines as well, and they have these big wholesale places, and then they try to reduce their cost and compete on cost with Walmart, I can almost guarantee you, if they ever try to do that, they will lose. They'll lose the core of who they are as a company, which is convenience. Amazon is about convenience. Walmart is about price. And if Walmart tries to compete in the convenience game, which by going online, you're competing in the convenience game, and make that the sole core of their business, they will fail. And Amazon, likewise, if they try to go everything more to like retail space, they will fail. And so in your practice, it's the same way. And if you are straddling those lines, you have to make a decision. You have to make a commitment. Now, I'm not telling you to scrap what you're doing, right? I tell every client that I work with, like, do not do that. If you want to fail, do that right away. Just say, you know what? This is where we're going. But once you start to straddle the lines, you still have to make a commitment to a level and then move towards that level. And if you don't, you'll get stuck. And I will tell you, I've had my practice, and I tell everybody this, my practice has had periods where it's been stuck. And if you have any coach that tells you, oh, I'm never stuck, I grow 25% a year and everything's perfect, that's BS. That's absolute BS. There's no way that that's BS until they make a committed decision to move in a certain direction. And even when they do that, you're going to hit bumps in the road. Building a wellness center practice is not the easiest thing in the world to do. I understand that. That's why I coach what I coach, to help people kind of move past that transition period so they can start to do more meaningful dentistry for their patients. And I will tell you, there's still times that I struggle with that in my own practice because I have a unique situation where, I'm practicing in multiple areas. I'm trying to make that all work, and I still have a coaching business. So usually if my attention wavers, one of those things will suffer. And, sometimes it's my practice, unfortunately. As much as my practice is my baby, there are times where I take attention away from it. I get lost as well, and I have to come back and refocus. And I'll tell you right now, one of those times is happening in my practice where, because of all the things I'm doing, I've had to reprioritize focus on the practice to figure out where are we going? What's the direction we're moving? So if you are struggling with that particular problem, not really knowing where your practice is at and where you want to go, I highly encourage you to start to say, what tier am I in? What tier do I want to be in? And how do I move from one tier to the next as seamlessly as possible so I can start doing more meaningful dentistry for my patients? So I want to thank you guys all so much for listening to this podcast. It means the world to me. If you could leave me a review and a rating, that would be fantastic. Also, if you want to move towards that third tier in your practice and you've tried things in the past, but you weren't successful, I highly encourage you to check out this free training that I put up. And if this resonates with you, I'd love to get on a call with you and see if I can help you get your practice to where you want it to go. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Dental Practice Freedom Radio with Dr. Steve Schlintz. We'll see you on the next episode.